This is Ashley from Written in Ash. Just a little update, just something real quick. I know anybody that might be actually watching any of my videos might wonder why I don't have like thumbnail pictures, but the reason is because I have to verify my account in order to do that, and when I tried to do that, I was saying that my password was wrong, and the email that I sent it to is an old email that I signed up with YouTube a long time ago, and I don't remember the password for that email, so I can't update my account, or I can't verify it, so that means I can't do thumbnails. So that sucks. So I just have random pictures for my thumbnails for now. And so I can figure that out. I already tried to, and when I tried to sign in or tried to say a different way of doing it, I put my name in. It said I didn't recognize my name as having an account, so I don't know. Anyways, so I'm going to be reading another scary story. The last one I did, the blind girl, was the one that I wrote. So that one and Flicker and Buzz are the ones that I wrote, and the other ones are from these short story books. Let's see, one I'm going to be reading now. Voices in the Night from Ghosts and Witches Aplenty. More Tales Our Settlers Told by Joseph and Edith Raskin. Thomas Tracy, the tailor of Westerfield, Connecticut, was having a bad day, and he blamed it all on his neighbor, Catherine Harrison. He didn't know whether it was the evil spirit in her that had prompted the quarrel with his good friend when he refused to lend him his horse saddle, but it was odd that she should have been passing his house soon afterward. It was also strange that, experienced a tailor as he was, he suddenly couldn't sew a single stitch right. No matter how many times he tried to fit the sleeves into the jacket he was making, he would find that he had placed them wrongly and had to rip them out again. And when he cut the cloth for breeches, he was dismayed to find that the two sides of the breeches were of completely different colors. All of this was befuddling, especially since normally he did things right. Later on in the day, feeling a need for fresh air, he stepped out of the house, and what he saw made him shudder. A hay cart was moving toward Catherine Harrison's shed, and on top of it was a bright red calf's head and its ears pricked up. Before his eyes, the calf's ears had disappeared, and for a moment Catherine's dead husband appeared in its place and then vanished. "Witch, I know you're a witch. I just saw you work your evil," he shouted wildly. He saw her coming toward him, but he remained standing where he was as if his feet were glued to the ground. "Neighbor, you aren't in your right mind. You need a good rest," she told him calmly. "Witch, everybody knows you're a witch," he went on shouting. "Stop this slander, or I'll make you stop," she warned him. Thomas watched her going back to her house and couldn't frighten him with her threats, he thought, and she couldn't make a fool out of him. He was in excellent health and had all his senses. Nevertheless, he went on to bed early, but he was abruptly awakened by the sound of voices. Standing at his bedside were the friend he had quarreled with and Catherine. He could clearly hear them arguing about how to put an end to him. His friend wanted to use the knife he was holding, but Catherine held him back, insisting that choking would be better and that she should be given the pleasure of watching him suffer for a while. Suddenly, a string was around his neck, pulling and pinching him. Then the pain came so unbearable that he couldn't hold back his moans. Fortunately, his father heard his moans and, rushing over to his bed, asked what the trouble was. Immediately, Catherine and his friend let go of him, but shortly after his father left, Catherine started in once more, forcing him to groan again. Exhausted by the night's torture, Thomas stayed in bed the following day, but the news of Catherine's evil work spread rapidly among the neighbors. That afternoon, Catherine found her horse lying with a broken neck in the meadow. Is there no sanity left on earth? Catherine lamented. This was not the first time harm had been done to one of her cows, been cut out, and someone else's mark set in. She was aware that the neighbors were envious and suspicious of her. Only recently, she had overheard them whispering. The way she tells fortunes, she must be guided by the devil. She's a Sabbath breaker, too. And how can any woman appear so fresh and lively after a hard day's work? It's unnatural. True, she liked to amuse herself telling people's fortunes after first learning their past, the way the clever fortune teller Mr. Lilly had taught her to do. The fools, because of which trifles they thought she was a witch. Thomas Tracy stayed in bed 4 days and didn't go back to work for a while after that. Seeing him sitting on his stoop looking weak, his neighbors stopped to talk to him. How are you getting on? Farmer Dickinson inquired. I hope your affliction has left you. I'll be all right, Thomas assured him. I just came upon this Catherine Harrison. Farmer Montague revealed, joining them. You know what she said to me? She told me that a swarm of her bees had flown away over the meadow and across the river, but she instantly fetched them back again. Now I don't see how she could have done such an amazing feat without the help of the devil. She couldn't have done it any other way, Dickinson agreed. I also saw her on the meadow the other day. Hokanum, Hokanum, I heard her calling. I looked around and there were her cows at least a mile away. The cows were surely too far to hear her call, yet they came running like crazy. Peculiar, isn't it? At that moment, Mary Hale came walking along the road. She walks perky, doesn't she? Here's a girl who'd make a good wife, Thomas, Dickinson said, nodding his head meaningfully. However, Mary wasn't feeling as well as she appeared to Farmer Dickinson, and as the day wore on, she could hardly drag herself to bed. Her worried parents kept the fire ablaze in the fireplace to make the room both warm and bright for her. Mary was certain she wasn't asleep when she heard a sound as if someone were opening the door of her room. As the room was, she could see no one was entering. All at once, something landed on her legs, and the pain was so terrible that she was afraid she would never be able to use them again. No sooner did the pain in her legs cease somewhat when something began to press on her stomach and chest, causing her to gasp for breath. What can it be? She wondered, wildly looking about the room. Ah, there it is. An ugly-shaped dog with a face closely resembling Catherine Harrison's. Too stunned to scream, she saw it scurrying about the room, stopping at her parents' bed, then disappearing. The following night, Mary felt the same pains again. As she put her hand on her chest, trying to ease the pain, her fingers touched her face. Then she heard a voice.
Do you not fear me?
No, Mary replied. I'm not afraid of you.
I will make you afraid before I'm done with you,
The voice said. As the pressure on her body increased, Mary tried to call to her father and mother sleeping in the same room, but no sound came out of her mouth.
No use calling them. They won't hear you until after I'm gone. You made a wish that they should carry you to the gallows in my own cart, didn't you?
How do you know that? I told this to no one but my mother.
That is why I have brought such affliction upon you.
The devil must have sent you. No, Mary cried, whispered in her ear.
I came by God's will. Now, if you promise to keep my visit a secret, I won't afflict you anymore.
I won't promise. You can't fool me, Catherine Harrison. I know who you really are.
Think it over.
Voice warned her. With that, it vanished into the night. Mary was confined to her bed for 3 weeks, blaming it on the fact that she hadn't kept the night visit a secret. Hearing her tale, Thomas Tracy exclaimed, I had the same affliction as you did, and it was the cursed witch Catherine who brought it on me. When the villagers heard about Catherine's evil doings, they decided it was time to do something about it. Soon afterward, Catherine Harrison was seized, taken to jail, and summoned for trial in Hartford. The court was packed with people whose tension showed on their faces. as they listened to the judge reading to the prisoner. Catherine Harrison, you are accused of being guilty of witchcraft, of having no fear of God, and being familiar with Satan, the greatest enemy of God and all mankind. That with the help of Satan, you have been inflicting body injuries on innocent people, which according to the law is punishable by death. Pleading not guilty, Catherine asked to be tried by a jury. To the great disappointment of the crowd, who had expected instant excitement, her request was granted. Losing no time, Catherine submitted a set of her own complaints to the court. For the last 2 years since she had become a widow, she had been constantly harassed and her animals injured or killed by some of the people in Weathersfield. One time, her yoke of oxen, while standing right at her house, were assaulted by blows on their backs and sides. Her horse had been injured in the same manner. Another time, her brand marks on her heifer and sow had been cut out and others set in. Her cornfield had been trampled by horses and sacks of wheat spilled all over the yard. For these damages and many more, she could give the court all the proof needed. A few months later, the trial of Catherine Harrison was finally resumed. Many witnesses were called to testify against the accused, among them Thomas Tracy and Mary Hale. Then, on the 12th of October, 1669, the jury pronounced their verdict. Catherine Harrison was guilty of witchcraft. Many among those present at the trial were jubilant. Give the witch what she deserves. Hang her, they clamored. However, the magistrates had nagging doubts whether the accused had really been given a fair verdict. Could it be possible that the testimony the witnesses that had given was merely the outcome of imagination or spite? Thomas Tracy may have been convinced that this tale about Catherine Harrison's night visit and her threats to choke him were true. But wasn't Tracy suffering from a high fever at that time? It was peculiar that his parents, who came to his bedside when he groaned, were not aware of the strangers being in the room. And how true was Mary Hale's tale? Was she in her right mind when she saw the shape of a dog with a human's head resembling Catherine Harrison's? At any rate, only she alone had seen it. There was no one else who could verify her story. In order to dispel her doubts, the magistrates consulted not only the laws of Connecticut, but even the gospel. They finally came to the conclusion that any evidence presented by witness against the accused must be sworn by at least one more person if it is to be accepted as a fact. With this in mind, they sent Catherine Harrison's case and their final judgment to a special court of assistance for reconsideration. After studying the case, the court of assistance pronounced the jury's verdict unfair. They ordered Catherine Harrison to be released from prison and set free after she paid the court expenses. There was another condition she had to agree to. For your own safety and for the sake of your neighbors' peace of mind, you must move away from Weathersfield, she was told. Catherine's joy at being declared innocent gave way to indignation as she realized that she must leave the home where she had spent a good part of her life. But then she remembered how terrible things had been of late. Comforting herself with the promise of better times, she moved to Westchester, New York. Even there, the suspicion that she was a witch pursued her, but finally she was left alone to live out her days in peace. The end.
Don't be scared. Like, subscribe, share.